How's it going, everybody? This is the Nitty Gritty. My name is Chad. With me, as usual, is Leonard. This is a show about wrestling. And this week we are going to be talking about AEW's most recent pay per view event, Double or Nothing 2026. And I actually went to the event, so I'm going to be giving a recap and review from that perspective.
Oh,
Uh,
so you physically went.
I did, yeah.
Okay, I misunderstood when you first emailed me that it was just be like, oh, I was going to watch it. So,
Yeah, no, I actually got tickets. I actually went with friend of the show, former 411 colleague Eric, and former Dailies to Downloads co-host back in the day. For those who remember that show. Um,
let me ask you before you even start. By the end of it, were you done?
so yeah, I mean, like we've talked about it before with AEW events. It was long, you
I
know.
looked it up. It was because I want to know how long it was. Because again, we had talked about time. So, counting the pre-show, it was 5 hours, and I'm sure that doesn't even count you getting there early and then the time it takes to get out and all that. So, this was like your day.
Well, I mean, it was certainly my evening
Yeah.
and night. No, it was long. We'll talk about that though. Yes, this was held Sunday, May 26th, 2026, from Louis Armstrong Stadium in Queens, New York. Now, I had been to see the Yankees. My proximity to the city is pretty close. I've seen different events in the city. I had actually never been to this area. You know, this was right near where the Mets play, Citi Field
Mm-hmm.
and Louis Armstrong Stadium, and I believe it's still called Arthur Ashe Stadium. Those
Oh,
are
Arthur
all
Ashe. I was going to say, I never heard of Louis Armstrong. I do know Arthur Ashe.
well, me either before this event. They're all kind of in the same area, and I didn't know that. And
Okay, so this isn't Arthur Ashe. This is a different thing next to it.
yeah, well, because I told my wife, she's like, "Oh, where are you going?" And I was like, "I think it's Arthur Ashe. Maybe it was renamed." like,
Well,
but
how big was it? Again, I didn't watch the show, so like, how big of a stadium is it?
Arthur Ashe Stadium, which there was a event held at Arthur Ashe Stadium, an AEW event. I think
Mm-hmm.
it was, oh God, one of their bigger Dynamite.
It was one of the first
Yeah.
early bigger shows. I do not remember which one, but I remember that being like a really big hyped show for them.
That houses 23,770 some people.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur Ashe. Louis Armstrong Stadium is a 14,000 seater
Okay,
arena.
still sizable.
Absolutely, and was so going there based on the fact that the weather was crappy. Like I didn't know if there was a roof. You know, I mean, it's a stadium, so I had no idea. But you know, Eric told me on the way. He's like, "Oh, I think it's enclosed," and it was, which
All
is
right,
nice.
good.
You know, I didn't have to worry about that. Um, but But yeah, so I mean, it's a cool area. There's the only problem is like kind of getting in and out of this venue, and we'll talk about that towards the end as well. Um, so there were 12 matches on this card. I did not arrive for the entire pre-show, which is called the buy-in. Previously, it was called a zero-hour thing. But there were three matches on the buy-in. We arrived in the middle of that, and the main reason we arrived in the middle of that is because there's only so many ways to get in and out of Louis Armstrong Stadium, and so it just kind of creates like a backlog at the few gates that they have. But the first match was Divine Dominion, Megan Bain and Lena Cross defeating Zeta Steel and Viva Van with Christopher Daniels at their ringside in a 5-minute tag team eliminator match, 4 minutes and 46 seconds. The eliminator matches, as we know, are if you defeat the champions, which are Divine Dominion in this case, or you go to the time limit with no winner, then that grants you a title shot. In this case, they did not. The next match on the buy-in, the Death Riders, Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, Wheeler Yuta with Marina Shafir defeated the Ops of Hook, Katsuyori Shibata, and Anthony Bowens at a trios match by pinfall, 10 minutes, 35 seconds. We arrived when this one was going on, saw a little bit of it. The last match on the buy-in was Boom and Doom, which includes Big Boom AJ and QT Marshall against the conglomeration of Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, and Roderick Strong, with Big Justice, Harley Cameron, and the Rizzler Leonard at ringside.
There are way too many factions in AEW.
We were
Like
talking.
when I was looking at the results, everybody had 18 people at ringside with them. It was like an MC Hammer concert.
We
There's just
talked about
people
that.
out there that aren't doing anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, in this case, they tried to give everybody something to do. To be fair, but I agree that there are a lot of factions, and they were going against Shane Taylor Promotions, which includes Shane Taylor, Captain Sean Dean, Carly Bravo, Anthony Agogo, and Lee Moriarty. This is a 10-man tag match, and the pin was at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. And the last part of the buy-in was not a match, but it was a promo. We knew that Mick Foley had signed with AEW, at least in the capacity of, maybe an announcer or commentator or an interviewer, whatever. He and Renee Paquette were in the ring kind of promoting the main event, and MJF came out and interrupted, and they had a brief exchange of words, which was cool to see because, Mick Foley was, fired up and delivered a promo back at MJF, who kind of insulted him, and then Mick Foley got kicked in the balls. So there is some physicality with Mick Foley already.
Well, but I'm going to say that's not going to lead to a match.
Well, no.
And even if it did, it's going to lead to a horrible match.
Well, he wanted to, this was like a year or so ago, he wanted to, prepare for one last match for, I think, his 60th birthday or something to that effect. And he realized that doing even anything small was, really making him not feel right. So he axed it immediately. So then fast forward to now, he's signed on with AEW, I think, as just kind of, somebody probably to be in the ring with certain talents and, kind of hype things up.
Well, that has happened before where they have signed a name just to sign a name and they're present. I mean, what did they ever get out of Big Show?
Well, I mean, they used him for a while. I know he's still under contract, but I mean, they did use him for a while. They used him in a similar capacity. They used Mark Henry in a similar capacity. WWE uses legends as well. Let's,
Well, I'm not saying that they don't.
Be fair, we can't.
I'm not saying that. Here's what you do this every single time. Every time I say AEW does A, you say WWE does B, and that's not what I'm saying.
Well, because it feels heavily critical every time I bring up AEW.
Well, it is because they suck. But that's not me saying WWE doesn't suck. That's automatically where you go.
Okay, but if you're saying AEW sucks, shouldn't you base that on some sort of I've watched enough of it to know that it's bad?
No, I don't need to do that.
Okay. Well, I mean, to each their own, I guess.
No. I should not say it that way. I was yanking your chain. But no, it does seem like every time that I say something, you always leap to, well, WWE does that too, where I'm not saying that they don't, and I'm not saying that they do, and I don't they're no better. I mean, I'm to the point where I don't like anything. We've discussed this. I just don't like any modern wrestling at all. So I apologize for being critical, but I don't see them getting much use out of Mick Foley. I honestly don't.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible that they'll use him as they've used other talents, which is sparingly, and, then maybe they'll fade away. Who knows? I don't know what the plans are with him. He wasn't really on the main show. He was just kind of on this buy-in. So I'm not sure what they plan on using him for in the future. They've also been known to use people as one-offs. We were talking about that when we were there with Ronda Rousey. That was not pointing towards anything. That was just a favor to Marina Shafir and a way for her to give the middle finger to TKO. So,
well, she was promoting her fight with Gina Carano, or was this before that? This was before that?
It was before her fight with Gina Carano.
It was before. Okay, it was before.
Yeah, she didn't necessarily mention that, but yes, it was before. So the first match on the card was Cope and Cage against FTR, Dax Harwood, and Cash Wheeler. in an I Quit match for the AEW Tag Team Championships, 19 minutes, 35 seconds. Cope and Cage won the tag team titles. Had they lost, they would have permanently disbanded as a team. This is the second match between these teams. And this one was everything you would expect it to be. Not buckets of blood, but there was blood. There was a lot of weapons and battles on the outside, and there was, some humorous things with the I Quit microphone, I thought. But this was a very good match. All of these guys can still go. FTR is still one of the best tag teams that there is. And Cope and Cage, when they're healthy, which they are seemingly now, are obviously legends and are very good together. I figured that they would get the tag titles here. I think it makes sense, and I think it will add to the tag division. And this is the first time I'll mention this, but this is another example, like what some have, around the internet have previously criticized AEW for their lack of storylines or their non-existent storylines. There's a lot of storylines on this card in particular that are examples of their long-term storytelling paying off. I think that they've gotten a lot better in that regard, and this one between Cope and Cage and FTR has been going on for a while. So it was cool to see this happen here.
Well, let me positively say I do support long-term storytelling, and I do think on paper that would probably be a very good matchup with two veteran teams that, see, I'm going to get negative because I'm going to say they're not flippy teams. They're not flippy people. So just go out and have a match.
Yeah, I would probably give this about 4 stars, maybe 4.25, but 4 at least. The next match was Konosuke Takeshita versus Kazuchika Okada for the AEW International Championship. 19 minutes. Takeshita wins this match, and I was very excited about this. The first time I got the opportunity to see Okada live. And that was certainly a wrestling bucket list item for me. This was one of the best matches I've ever seen live, for sure. I've been to WrestleManias, I've been to Dynamites and Raws and Hogan house shows and all the stuff you can think of. But this match was really great. 4.5 stars easy. It made sense for Takeshita to win this. I was saying to Eric when we were there, if I was booking this, I'd book Okada to lose because he needs to be in the main event scene. AEW has at least 2 to 3 guys that need to be in the main event scene that are not. And Okada is one of them. He elevated this championship as much as he could. And, it makes sense. Takeshita is a good person to have it. And after the fact, so they were in the same faction. Leonard, basically talking to you here, since the people listening to this probably know, but they were in the same Don Callis family, and they were feuding within the Don Callis family. This is another one that has been going on for a while. And, you would think that they would turn on Takeshita, which they did. Kyle Fletcher came out, returned from injury. I thought he was going to be out for longer. He got a pretty good pop. And he turned on Takeshita with the rest of the family. So there will be a feud started there, which makes sense. The next match is the start of the Owen Hart Cup, which is a tournament they do every year, which is brought to them by the Owen Hart Foundation, Martha Hart. And this is the women's quarterfinal. Athena, who's the Ring of Honor women's champion, against Mina Shirakawa. 11 minutes pin. Athena would win this. Also a good match. I didn't get to see all of this, though, because this was the cliche bathroom break.
Yes.
So even though
you went to bathroom during a women's match, you didn't support the women.
These 2 ladies are great. Both of them are great. Yeah. And if I had my way, I wouldn't have gotten up at all. But I had to get up at this point.
Well, let me say this. So I know there's the Owen Hart men's tournament. The Owen Hart women's tournament doesn't sound right. It sounds like it would make more sense if you found a woman to name the tournament after. There's the Mae Young Classic that NXT used to have.
Yeah, they just call it.
That's just one of those little, aesthetic things, maybe.
Yeah, they call it the Owen Hart Cup. They have a women's tournament, a men's tournament. I suppose they could name it after Martha Hart, but that might be weird.
Diana Hart.
There you go. Mm-hmm. The next match was Jon Moxley against Kyle O'Reilly for the AEW Continental Championship. no time limit on this. So the Continental Championship has usually some special rules. They usually go a certain time limit. If it's a TV match, it's usually a certain time limit. And there's nobody allowed at ringside at all. And in this case, there's no time limit. The no people at ringside thing still stands. These guys have had a long feud, and Kyle O'Reilly has a few wins over Jon Moxley. He did not win here, though. Moxley retains with a submission at 18:45.
You know what? I would call that belt the Outer Continental title.
There you go.
Just to be funny.
You could, absolutely. Well, we have some funny names for our belts on Fever Dreams.
That's right.
So this one was a good kind of not bring down, but like it was a good change of pace from what we had seen with the Japanese style and the hardcore style. This was more of a submission technical based style, which Kyle O'Reilly brings to the table as well as anybody. And Jon Moxley can adapt to pretty much anything. So this was cool to see. The next match is the start of the Men's Owen Hart Cup. The quarterfinal, Will Ospreay against Samoa Joe. The crowd was really hyped for this.
I like that one on paper too. I think that they're kind of different styles, but I could see them both working within the style of the other person.
Yeah, and Ospreay would win this and at 13 minutes 55 seconds. By the way, I would probably give Jon Moxley and Kyle O'Reilly maybe 3 3/4 stars. Give Ospreay and Samoa Joe 4 stars easy. I didn't have time to really analyze these ratings, but this is just kind of like gut.
Well, it's a lot different between being there live and watching it than watching it on TV. If it was me, and when I've gone to live shows, like I've never even tried to give star ratings. I just think it's too hard to do when you're there live.
Yeah,
but you do you. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying I find it very hard to do live.
No, I would agree with that. So after this, we would see Swerve Strickland with Prince Nana against Bandito. This is another part of the Men's Owen Hart Cup quarterfinal. Swerve Strickland would win this 15 minutes and 20 seconds. They're certainly going to Will Ospreay being the guy who challenges for the title at All In, which is their big event in August. And it makes sense. Ospreay's never had the world title there. He's coming back from an injury. They're playing that up a lot. So one would think that's where they're headed. But the Swerve Strickland Bandito match was great. Again, they've been kind of, preparing for this one for a little bit, even though it's a tournament. This one was excellent, 4 1/4 stars for sure. The next match was the 4-way for the AEW Women's World Championship. Tekla against Hikaru Shida, Jamie Hayter, and Chris Statlander. 14 minutes, Tekla would retain. This is about what you would expect from 4-ways. I would give this 3.5 stars because I think all the ladies really tried hard. But as far as fatal 4-ways, whether it's men or women, you see similar spots in that there's a couple people that have to sit out and wait until it's their turn to get in. We've seen that. We've talked about it on the show here with other matches. But still, this was decent for what it was. The women's division still has room for them to get somebody else in there, and I would think Mercedes Moné is probably coming back at some point soon. So the next match was the Stadium Stampede match. A lot of people in this one, Leonard. Jericho, the Hurt Syndicate of Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, and the Elite, Kenny Omega, Jungle Jack Perry, Matt Jackson, and Nick Jackson, against the Demand, Ricochet, Bishop Khan, Toa Leona, and the Don Callis family, Mark Davis, Andre El Idolo, and the Dogs of David Finlay and Clark Connors. So this one was 31 minutes and 15 seconds, and Stadium Stampede matches. I don't know if have you ever seen one of those before?
I've seen clips. So it didn't happen in front of you. You had to watch it on the screen, right? They were elsewhere.
A lot of it happened in front of us, but there was a lot of stuff that happened in the screens as well. And a lot of comedy involved in this, a lot of hardcore stuff involved in this. It's supposed to be, I think, have a little bit of an air of goofiness to it.
Yeah, I'm not against that. I'm not against a comedy match. Like I said, I've seen clips. I don't know. A half hour seems a little bit long for a concept like that. But I'm not against the idea.
This kind of started in like when COVID was around.
Yes, I believe the first one was in an empty stadium in 2020. That's why I had it in my head that
where the Jaguars. play because the Khans own that team.
Yeah.
So they were there at Daly's place, and the stadium is right next door. So they would, they did a thing there, which was cool, and then it just kind of stuck. But this was a lot of fun. It's hard to give this one a rating, so I'm going to refrain from doing so. And the main event, kind of knew where this one was going, but MJF against Darby Allin, title versus hair for the AEW World Championship. MJF defeats Darby Allin, gets his title back. Darby Allin's reign was 39 days, and he had 7 title defenses. He defended the title on almost every single AEW show. People will disagree on their opinions on this. I thought that this was a cool idea because I thought it was a cool idea to have him have it for a short reign, to have him get the title. He won a match 2 minutes, 15 seconds on TV. I thought that AEW should have done something like that, where they have like a big title like that change hands on TV. They did it. Darby Allin's reign being short makes sense, I think, for his character. And I think that the fact that he had all these title defenses is a really cool way to kind of separate his short reign.
Would you say they were meaningful title defenses?
Yes, I would say all of them were pretty meaningful title defenses.
Yeah.
Was it against like Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay? No. They were definitely like not mid-card guys, but just below,
Right, but even with that, and especially if we're talking a TV title defense, it can still be meaningful. I'm saying he's not going over Luther.
Right. Yeah.
He's not defeating Tony Storm.
Right. This one
who would actually be a pretty good opponent maybe for
I would
him.
love to see that, but
he's not fighting women and her butler. Her butler is Luther, right? That's why I said that.
Not the Luther in WWE. Gunther. No, that's Gunther.
That's Gunther.
I'm getting my characters confused.
Yes.
This was 23 minutes 10 seconds. Again, I'd probably give this one 3 3/4 stars or so. I thought this was a good match between these two. It kind of was a mix of a regular match, and they had a little bit of hardcore stuff. Obviously, it's Darby Allin. He was jumping from the top of the Double or Nothing sign, and he's another breed. But yeah, this was very cool, and the whole event was like definitely at least an A- of an event. I mean, every match was really, really good, and like the thing is, yes, it is long, and man, by the end of this, because I had gotten up early this day anyway, I was shot. I had to drive from Queens back to my house, and it was a very long day. But they have the opposite problem with length of shows that WWE has. WWE shows are long because they put in a lot of padding. Like AEW shows are long because they want to give you as much wrestling that they can. And I'm not saying that one's better than the other, but like if I'm choosing more wrestling. Do I wish it was shorter? Yes. I think that the Jon Moxley Kyle O'Reilly match, for example, didn't need to be here. They did add it though, so it is what it is. They could have cut 1 or 2 matches, and I think it would have been a little bit tighter of a run time for sure. One of the things coming out of this, which was just, man, it is crazy. Being that I was there, Leonard, and I could see what was going on, and seeing then how one rumor took hold on the internet, and it was completely false. So, as I said, going into this event, there's only so much places you can walk and exit. And the same
you said that.
There are, there's one way to get to the subway trains. There's another way if you want to get to the streets, and you have to walk on this maybe like 3-4 people wide platform to get out. And so we're talking 14,000 people. This is a sold out show. So, it was really like bumper to bumper traffic wise getting out of there. And you would see videos online that said fans were stranded after the AEW show because it went too long, which is complete and utter bullshit. The subways run in New York all the time. So like nobody was stranded, but you just it was crowded and like a jumble of people getting out of there, which is not great, but that's on the city of New York. So I just wanted to add that. After the Darby Allin MJF match, Darby was on a stretcher and they had a heel turn, Kevin Knight turning heel. which was unexpected, which was a cool moment as well. Oh, I forgot to add during the Cope and Cage match, Beth Copeland had a run in,
Okay.
and that was pretty cool as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, as far as my view goes, this Louis Armstrong Stadium was pretty cool in that you have a good view pretty much from wherever your seat is.
Where were you? Were you like lower deck, upper deck?
I was like middle, like maybe like the upper mezzanine. We were in like the 100 level.
Okay, that's good. That's usually a good. I like that for almost any concerts too, because you're not too high, but you get to look down on it. You get
Yeah. The crowd was hot throughout. I've seen AEW shows that are long that from other states, other areas where you look at the crowd at the end and they've lost some of their steam for sure. I didn't think that the crowd lost any of their steam here. They seemed to be pretty hot even towards the end. How that came off on TV, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, this was really cool to be at. I've been at a couple AEW pay-per-views now, and this one was great. I think that the company is in a really good spot. I think that they're moving up steadily, and although I didn't watch the post-event press conference, I do know that Tony Khan was asked about next year in April, the fact that there's no major wrestling event in America happening in April of next year, because as we know, WrestleMania
right
in Saudi Arabia, and to which Tony Khan replied, "Not yet." So we'll see what happens there. It sounds like he's going to try.
He would be smart to capitalize on that. I wouldn't be against him on that. And I'll say real quickly about show length. To me, a perfect length of a major show would be maybe about 7 to 8 matches in 4 hours.
I think between 3 and 4 hours.
Yeah, and I'm also not against the old In Your House, which was like 5 matches in under 2 hours.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that too, but it's based on structure, like you were saying. I think maybe like WWE is not putting enough matches into the time they have. AEW is maybe trying to put too much into the time that they have. So you got to strike a balance.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's like I was saying. They have this same problem, but in separate ways.
Yes, yeah, same problem, separate ways.
But yeah, so if you watched it, let me know what you thought about the TV or the pay-per-view showing of it. I can't comment on any of the commentary. I heard JR had a botch. He's older and he has health issues. It is what it is. But yeah, so I thought this was a lot of fun. Comment however you see fit, and check out our other episodes and our other videos as well. We are available wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit the like button, subscribe to our content. And for Leonard, my name is Chad, and we will see you next time.